Everyone sees the million-dollar smile and the death-defying stunts, but Russell Crowe saw something else entirely. He didn't just clash with Tom Cruise on the set of The Mummy. He issued a warning that most of Hollywood was too terrified to repeat. Today, we're revealing the secret that turned these two icons into lifelong rivals and why Russell says you should stop trusting the image. This is not your typical celebrity spat over trailer sizes, billing order, or who gets the bigger dressing room on set. This is a deep-seated, multi-decade ideological war between two of the most powerful and distinct personalities in modern cinematic history. On one side, you have Tom Cruise, the ultimate product of the Hollywood machine. He is a man who has spent over 40 years meticulously constructing a public persona of flawless charisma, boundless energy, and unparalleled dedication to his craft. He is the savior of the theater experience, the guy who jumps out of planes and hangs off the side of cliffs just to entertain you. But on the other side, you have Russell Crowe. Russell is the exact opposite of a manufactured Hollywood product. He is raw, rugged, fiercely independent, and notoriously honest to a fault. He is a New Zealand-born powerhouse who built his career on sweat, grit, and an absolute refusal to play the political games of the studio system. When these two opposing forces were finally forced into the same orbit, the resulting friction did not just disrupt a film shoot. It threatened to tear down the very facade that Tom Cruise has spent his entire life protecting. To understand why this conflict is so intense, we have to look at the history that predates their disastrous collaboration by nearly a quarter of a century. Back in the early 1990s, when both men were rising to the absolute peak of global stardom, their lives became deeply intertwined. Tom Cruise was married to Nicole Kidman, a proud, brilliant Australian actress who was the crown jewel of a tight-knit circle of Antipodean talent working in Hollywood. This group, which the media often referred to as the Gumtree Mafia, included actors like Russell Crowe, Naomi Watts, and Hugh Jackman. They were a fiercely loyal pack of outsiders who protected one another in an industry known for chew-and-spit dynamics. Russell and Nicole, in particular, shared a deep, platonic bond that went back to their early days in Australia. Russell was actually introduced to Tom Cruise at a casual backyard barbecue hosted by Naomi Watts in 1992. For a brief moment, they coexisted in relative harmony. Russell was fascinated by Tom's intense work ethic, and he even briefly looked into Scientology out of curiosity because he wanted to understand what his friend's husband was so passionate about. But Russell ultimately walked away from the organization, refusing to ever step foot inside their doors. Then came the year 2001, and with it, one of the most high-profile and painful divorces in Hollywood history. When Tom and Nicole split, the aftermath was incredibly messy, filled with rumors of intense surveillance, religious pressure, and forced isolation. In the tight-knit Australian community, there was no room for neutrality. Russell did not hesitate for a second. He immediately chose to stand by Nicole Kidman, helping her navigate the emotional fallout of her public unraveling. Russell famously joked in an interview years later that when Tom and Nicole got divorced, he was part of Nicole's settlement, meaning his friendship with Tom was completely severed as a casualty of the split. For 15 long years, these two massive stars lived in entirely different worlds, avoiding each other on red carpets, refusing to share scripts, and maintaining a cold, silent distance that the rest of the industry quietly respected. But in 2016, Universal Pictures decided to execute an incredibly risky, multi-billion-dollar experiment. They wanted to create the Dark Universe, a cinematic franchise designed to compete directly with the Marvel Cinematic Universe by rebooting their classic monster library, including Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Invisible Man. To ensure the first film, a massive reboot of The Mummy, was a guaranteed box office smash, the studio hired the most reliable action star on the planet, Tom Cruise. But to ground the universe and provide a sense of prestige, they also needed an actor of immense gravitas to play the central connective tissue of the franchise, Dr. Henry Jekyll, the leader of a secret monster-hunting organization called Prodigum. They turned to Russell Crowe. It was a casting decision that sent shockwaves through the industry. The studio executives foolishly believed that time had healed old wounds, and that these two legendary actors would put their history aside to build a global powerhouse. They could not have been more wrong. From the very first day of production on the set of The Mummy, it became blindingly obvious that this was not a normal, collaborative movie shoot. It was a masterclass in what industry insiders call cruise control. Officially, the director of the film was Alex Kurtzman, a highly respected writer and producer. but a filmmaker with very little experience directing a massive $200 million action blockbuster. Tom saw this power vacuum and immediately stepped into it, seizing absolute creative control over virtually every single aspect of the production. He ordered extensive rewrites of the script, demanding that his character, a morally compromised soldier of fortune, be transformed into a classic heroic savior with more screen time than the actual mummy herself. He took over the editing bay, controlled the lighting setups, dictated the camera angles, and even managed the post-production marketing schedule. For a director like Kurtzman, it was an incredibly overwhelming and deeply painful experience that essentially stripped him of his creative authority. The crew and the supporting cast, terrified of crossing the most powerful star in Hollywood, kept their heads down and did exactly what they were told. But Russell Crowe was not terrified. But wait. What if I told you that the tension on the set of The Mummy was not just a simple battle of artistic egos, or a disagreement over who got more close-ups? What if the real warning Russell Crowe was trying to issue had nothing to do with movie sets at all, but was instead a warning about a highly calculated, psychological system of manipulation that Tom Cruise has spent his entire career perfecting? There is a shocking, hidden dimension to this rivalry that has never been fully exposed until now, a moment when the mask of the smiling savior slipped completely off, revealing a chilling reality that left onlookers utterly stunned. The psychological friction between these two men reached its absolute boiling point during the filming of the movie's most critical sequence, the brutal physical confrontation between Tom's character and Russell's Dr. Jekyll inside the Prodigam laboratory. This was not just a standard choreographed stunt sequence. It was a physical manifestation of 25 years of unspoken hostility, personal betrayals, and deep-seated ideological differences. Tom, who famously prides himself on his physical perfection and insists on performing his own death-defying stunts, wanted the fight to be a highly rehearsed, perfectly clean spectacle where he maintained the upper hand. He wanted to look like an untouchable, invincible action hero. But Russell had an entirely different philosophy. He believed in raw, dirty, vulnerable realism. He wanted the fight to look like a desperate struggle for survival, where characters actually felt pain and made mistakes. When they stepped onto the set to rehearse, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Crew members recalled that the air was thick with passive-aggressive remarks and sharp disagreements over how the physical contact should be handled. Russell openly resisted Tom's rigid, hyper-controlled choreography, choosing instead to bring an unpredictable, chaotic energy to the physical interactions. During one particularly intense take, the boundaries between acting and reality began to blur. The physical contact became dangerously real, with punches landing just a fraction of an inch too close, and bodies slamming into set pieces with genuine, bone-rattling force. Russell was essentially challenging Tom's entire system of control right in front of the crew, refusing to let him dictate every single movement. By resisting Tom's demands, Russell was showing everyone on that set that the untouchable megastar could be pushed, challenged, and physically confronted. This set battle highlighted a massive contrast in their fundamental approach to life and career. Tom Cruise's entire existence is built on the concept of simulation. Every smile, every interview, every stunt is part of a beautifully engineered product designed to project absolute confidence, safety, and triumph. He is a man who demands total submission from his directors, his co-stars, and his public relations team to ensure that the illusion is never broken. But Russell Crowe knows that illusions are inherently dangerous. He saw firsthand how that need for absolute control had impacted Nicole Kidman during her marriage, and he saw how it stripped the creative voices of everyone working on the set of The Mummy. Russell's warning to the public to stop trusting Tom is not just about a movie. It is a warning about the danger of worshiping a manufactured image. It is an invitation to look past the high-flying stunts and the charismatic press tour to see the cold, calculating machinery that operates behind the curtain. The tragedy of the situation is that Russell's warning proved to be completely prophetic. The Mummy was a massive critical and financial disaster, holding a dismal rating on review sites and costing the studio close to $100 million in losses. But more importantly, it completely destroyed the entire Dark Universe before it even had a chance to get off the ground. Universal had already released a highly publicized promotional photograph featuring Tom Cruise, Russell Crowe, Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, and Sofia Boutella, promising an era of interconnected monster movies. But because Tom insisted on absolute creative command, turning a classic gothic horror story into a generic, self-indulgent action vehicle to showcase his own viability as a blockbuster lead. The entire foundation of the franchise crumbled under the weight of his ego. This is a pattern we have seen repeat itself throughout Tom's career, where filmmakers and co-stars are forced to completely adapt their lives and artistic visions to fit inside the Cruise machine. While this has occasionally resulted in some of the greatest action cinema of our time, it has also created an environment where no other creative voice is allowed to coexist. Russell Crowe was one of the very few people in the history of modern cinema who had the industry stature, the personal courage, and the sheer grit to stand up and say no to that machine. He refused to let his character, Dr. Jekyll, be reduced to a mere prop in the Tom Cruise show, and in doing so, he exposed the fragile nature of the entire illusion. Ultimately, Russell's warning is a powerful reminder that we must look closer at the icons we elevate. The next time you see the million-dollar smile on a red carpet or watch a death-defying leap on a massive screen, remember that there is always a cost to maintaining that level of perfection. Some of Hollywood's greatest talents have had to sacrifice their own voices, their relationships, and their creative freedom just to keep that machine running. Russell Crowe chose to protect his authenticity, his friends, and his artistic integrity over industry convenience, and his warning stands as a definitive line in the sand. But this clash of titans is just the beginning of a much larger, darker narrative that controls the entertainment industry. If you want to understand how deep the systems of celebrity manipulation really go, and how the studio system actively works to silence anyone who dares to speak the truth, click on the video on your screen right now, where we break down the secret agreements and hidden networks that keep Hollywood's biggest stars completely untouchable.